Well, kia ora everyone, and welcome to another look at the world of cycling. There is just so much going on at the moment. It's quite ridiculous and quite hard to keep on top of. Del Woodford is with me as always. Del, I think we'll start with the Giro d'Italia first up. Absolutely chaotic start, really. I think we're only 5 stages in, and there's been all sorts of storylines. I think we'll start with the big one. Geraint Thomas, the man everyone really expected to win, is out already.
Yeah, wow. You're right, Henry. We're 5 days in, but coming straight on the back of the Tour de France, you feel like it hasn't ended. And you look at the list, but yeah, Geraint Thomas. Wow, what a massive loss to the race. Also for Ineos, what a loss for them. After the way the Tour de France went, I'm sure they were pinning a lot of hopes on the Giro d'Italia. Geraint Thomas was in good form. He was really motivated for a good result, and to see him exit the race that way, really sad for him. And yeah, I think the race has lost a little bit with him not being there. Former Tour de France winner chasing a Giro, it would have been fantastic for the race for him to be there. Unfortunately, he's out. He's out completely, and the race is wow, wide open. You look down we're only 5 days in. Feels like it's longer for some reason, but you look down the GC sheet, and once again, young riders at the top.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we were speaking about during the Tour de France and with what we've seen lately. So yeah, we've got Joao Almeida at the top. He's got a pretty handy lead actually. That's sort of nicely gone out to 43 seconds. But when you look at the favourites, there's still the likes of Vincenzo Nibali in there, Steven Kruijswijk. One man though who's just sort of disappeared straight away is Simon Yates from Mitchelton-Scott. What do you think's happened there?
I don't know. It's just so costly in a Grand Tour. One bad day, and just you just don't feel good. Things just don't go right, and you can lose a lot of time. They won't panic though. Mitchell and Scott are a really well managed team, very experienced, and they know this is a 3-week bike race and we're 5 days in, so a lot can still happen in the race. We know that someone like Vincenzo Nibali is going to go absolutely on the attack at some stage because he wants to win this race. It's his home tour, and everybody in Italy will be right behind him. So he'll go on the attack. It could turn the race on its head. We've seen on the descents of the Tour de France how things can happen and how it can change. So I don't think Mitchell and Scott will be worried too much just yet. They've also got a couple of other riders sitting pretty handy as well. A couple of young guys, the young Australians going well in the race. So they've got a few cards to play. They've also got the options of going to stage wins, riding off other teams. So Matt White, Julian Dean, they know what's going on in Grand Tour racing. And it's the last week. You can lose 6 minutes and like what happened in the Tour de France in a very short stage. Things changed a lot, so they won't panic at this stage, but it's probably not where they'd like to be sitting.
It's such a different race already from the Tour de France. The Tour de France, we saw a lot of structure. We saw sort of super teams with super domestiques. Seems like the field for the Giro naturally coming off the back of the Tour de France and being so close. We don't have that same one dominant team at the front that's shutting things down, and we've got less stronger guys in the climb. So a lot of these top guys, your Nibalis and your Kruijswijks, are actually isolated, and they don't really have any teammates to help them out on those big climbs.
That's right, and I think it'll unfold, and again we'll see a select group of top contenders without a lot of teammates. The Giro is such an interesting race. You struggle to keep up with all the Classement jerseys. I think it's a tour that has more Classement jerseys than anything else. There's a blue jersey, a maroon jersey, the pink jersey. There's a lot of jerseys, and a lot of the Italian teams target those jerseys and those little intermediate sprints and the combine competition. So there's lots of races within the race. Lots of people just going for TV time. There's, it's big for the local, for the teams that are based in Italy, the Italian teams that race at the second tier. So it's always a different type of race, but we are used to seeing in the Giro still the big teams controlling the race, which you don't, as you rightly pointed out, you don't feel like you've got that right now. There's riders that we go, gee, who's that guy? What's he done in the past? Or where did he come from? So it's great. It's exciting for the sport. And that's something this really compact season has done. It's thrown it wide open. The structure of the teams has changed. They've got to put good riders at a bunch of different races in a really condensed, season. You look what's going on. We just had Liège-Bastogne-Liège, and the Giro d'Italia's on. So different riders in different places at different times. And I think it's actually been quite a lot of, as a fan, it's been quite good to watch. It's been exciting.
And while obviously Ineos are pretty gutted after Thomas's crash and withdrawal, they have had a bit of a reason to celebrate with sort of the emergence, I guess you could say, of Filippo Ganna, that great time trial win. And then he surprised a few perhaps with that pretty solid climb, which wasn't your traditional out of the saddle. It was that more time trial type of climb, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, he must be starting to think, in the future, maybe I've got a shot at some of these. Great time trial at the World Championships. Someone we didn't really have on our radar, whereas we really should have, because he prepared. He's the world champion in the 4,000 metres, and he has ridden 4:02 for that. And he should have been right on our radar, but we sort of missed him in the preview. Great prologue for him in the Giro to take the pink, the opening pink jersey as world champion. What more could you ask for? And then to back it up, and big celebrations for Ineos, and big ups to him as well for the way he approached the prologue as world champion, but didn't sit back and go, well, I've had the pink jersey now, my job's done. He's gone out to win a stage, and we knew he was a big talent. I think he's won 4 world titles on the track, world road champion. Wow, this guy could do a lot of things in years to come. I think again, what is he, 24, 25? So, another young rider hitting the straps on the road.
Absolutely. And unfortunately for this one, there are no Kiwis involved in this Grand Tour. I think that the intention was for Paddy Bevin to ride it for CCC, and that seemed like the case. Before the World Champs, though, he sort of just revealed in a casual Zoom call that they decided to pull him from that, put him on the Big Bank Tour. Were you quite surprised by that? Because, I mean, this Giro d'Italia is 3 time trials. Surely it's tailor-made for him.
Yeah, I really don't know what the team's strategy was. And I saw that interview you had with Paddy at the World Championships pre the time trial. And he was pretty gutted, wasn't he? Like, he had based his whole season pretty much around the World Championships, the Giro d'Italia, with the 3 time trials to get some good results. We know he's leaving the team, but the team is disbanding. So you can't say, well, he's already signed a contract with the Israel Cycling Project, so we're not going to worry about him because the team's disappearing. So I don't know the team's rationale. If you look through the results, you look through the prologue results, there hasn't been anyone jump out and go, well, he's taken Patrick's place. No problem at all. That's why he's in there and Paddy's missed out. I really felt for the guy. He was really looking forward to this Grand Tour, and he accepted. He goes, that's pro sport, that's pro bike racing, and but I felt he was pretty disappointed. And even though he put in a solid ride at the World Championships, I think sort of the news and reflecting on that the day before the time trial probably also, takes a little bit of effect on your performance there. Even though he had a fantastic time trial at the World Championships, it's super sad not to see him in the Giro d'Italia, because I think he would have acquitted himself very, very well, gone very close to winning one of those time trials.
Yeah, I must admit, I was very surprised when he sort of dropped that in the call, because like you say, 3 time trials, it seemed perfect for him. He'd been building for it, and seemed quite an odd decision, really. There's probably some things we're not quite privy to that went down behind the scenes, perhaps. On the subject of the World Championships, what did you make of it? I think we probably got it fairly well right with our predictions in terms of sort of the men's road race. They couldn't quite, the Kiwi boys anyway, just couldn't quite hack it with that relentless course.
No, but wow, didn't they ride well? Like I thought they all rode exceptionally well. Finn Fisher Black at his age in there doing what he did for as long as he was in the bike race. George getting through as far as he got through with the injury he carried on the back of being fatigued from the Tour de France. Dion Smith looked good, and we've got to remember that they're up against guys of eight teams of 8, not 8 riders, 9 riders, strong countries. They all rode really well. It wasn't until it got down to that last 40k, I guess, 50k of, remember, it's a 256 kilometre bike race. It's a long day out on a really tough circuit. I thought it was, even though you look through the results and go, that wasn't great. I thought it was one of our, top performances at a World Championships. Getting to the sharp end of the bike race, still seeing some black jerseys there, and riding well. It wasn't until the pressure really went on in that final stage of the race, when the Grand Tour guys came through, didn't they? The guys that had either raced well on the GC, they put the pressure on. The guys that had used that last week of the tour, like we talked about, to prepare for the World Championships, they come to the fore. I thought we had an outstanding World Championships and a fresh George Bennett, an uninjured George Bennett. He would have been right in there. And I think Dion Smith, with a bit more racing as well, would have been at the point, getting towards the pointy end as well. So, excellent World Championships for the men and the women as well. Wow, Liam Fisher Black. What a ride. 15th, 15th.
I think it was, yeah.
At her age, at this level, women's racing's on a real high. It's some fantastic riders. To be in there riding like that was a sensational performance. Michaela Harvey also going pretty well. Good ride, I think, inside the top 25. But Liam Fisher Black, I thought that was just something out of the box. 15th World Champs. Her age, it's really exciting going forward. She could win the World Champs on a good, tough circuit like that. She's good enough to win it.
Absolutely. And I think, that's been one of the highlights of the season, really, seeing her and Michaela Harvey just team up. They've managed to basically land themselves in every big women's world tour race consistently now. And it's nice to see both of them getting a crack. And they're both still so young that when you look at them and you add someone like Ella Harrison, I think Charlotte Lucas, we've mentioned before as well, there's a really good crop there.
Yes, well, Charlotte rode at Liège-Bastogne-Liège, had a DNF, would have been one of her first races back in Europe, I'd imagine. She raced Flèche Wallonne, finished pretty well there. Again, Michaela, another outstanding ride by her at Liège-Bastogne-Liège. When you start, you look through the preview of the race and you look at what the European reporters are saying, who are the big favourites to watch, and they go bang, 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 and they're all the names you're used to seeing. And then there's, and also keep an eye on. And, in that group of sort of 6 or 7 riders, number 3, you've got Michaela Harvey. Number 8, number 9, Liam Fisher Black. We're on the radar, and that's really exciting. And not only on the radar, they're then getting out into the race and delivering as well. So it was great to see Charlotte finish the race, Flèche Wallonne, looking pretty solid, and the girls at Liège-Bastogne-Liège, fantastic performance, tough race, great world champs, great Giro Rosa, and backing that up. So they've had a really good month of cycling and delivered really well. And it's exciting to be talking about them because we're so used to talking about the track program and how well our track men, our track women are doing. But with no track racing, it's just so exciting to be able to focus on the road and seeing them perform.
Absolutely. And touching on Liège-Bastogne-Liège, the men's race as well, we saw the classic. Well, it was really nice to see Primož Roglič get up, but we saw the classic thing, the thing no cyclist wants to do, which was the early celebration from Julian Alaphilippe, and Primož got there just in time. What did you make of that faux pas?
Oh, you feel for the guy. World champion. He's super exciting, wanting to celebrate. You don't say it happens to everybody because it doesn't, but you see people celebrate at different times at different events and get pipped on the post. It can be a local club race. It can be, one of the great classics of the world. It can be and we've seen it. We've seen some embarrassing situations for a number of riders. The sprint finish, I guess, was in question. The way Alaphilippe checkmarked Hershey and stopped him, so he ended up getting wasn't first across the line, but second across the line, relegated to 5th. Hershey's probably the hardest done by and all that, really, because he probably had the momentum to win the race anyway and was shut out. Alaphilippe celebrating early. as a world champion, you feel like a fool. You probably look like a fool, and you get nailed on the line. And I agree with you, Prince of Roger. Great to see him win. He never gave up fighting. He had a solid dab at the World Championships and just didn't have the legs. And nice to see him get a Liège best on Liège win. And Julian Alaphilippe, he got his win the other day in the World Championships jersey at Braden Pars, and he'll be happy with that. And Matthew Van der Poel thinks I messed that sprint up. So Alaphilippe's got his win as world champion, which is great, but it's not Liège best on Liège. And good on Roger for bouncing back after a disappointing Tour de France to take that great classic.
Yeah, it was certainly great to see. And like you say, a good lesson to sort of just keep going from Roglic's perspective. He didn't just stick a fork in the season and say, well, I'm done, and go off in a sulky. He came back. So that was really good to see. Speaking of sprints, actually, one thing that I'm sort of fascinated to see in the Giro is if Peter Sagan can finally get a win, because I think it was stage 4. He was just millimeters out of that one. It seems like he's getting slightly better as the season goes on. What do you reckon his chances are of getting one of these stages at some point?
I think it has to happen. He needs a lot of racing. He always likes a lot of racing and a lot of riding and a lot of training. He'll come down to Australia for the Tour Down Under, and people will meet him out riding in the middle of nowhere, out training. He just loves riding. He needs a lot of Ks, a lot of racing, and we saw him probably trying really hard in the Tour de France, not in good form because he was preparing for the Giro. So I think he's just going to keep getting better, and I think he could win a couple of stages. He needs a few things to go his way. The team did a great job the other day, putting a lot of pressure on the other sprinters when he nearly got there, just by millimeters. So they're committed. He's committed. I think we'll see a couple of stage wins, maybe 3 out of Peter Sagan before we finish this race.
Yeah, that sounds good. It would be great to see. And another thing actually that just popped up was the added to the chaos that's been in the Giro so far was that crazy sort of incident at the end with the helicopter apparently lifting the barriers. It took out a couple of riders, put them out of the race. It was a bizarre scene when it just sort of cut to them and there's 2 guys just lying prone on the ground, and it was, how the heck did that happen? What did you make of that and the whole helicopters and all of that sort of stuff?
How does it happen? But it always happens at the Giro d'Italia. There's always some incident with a helicopter in the Giro d'Italia. I can think back to Stephen Roach, and they put the helicopter in front of him because Vince Accotti is the big favourite. So Stephen's got the pink jersey, and they're trying to put the helicopter in front of him to create a headwind, and the opposite for the Italian guy to try and give him a tailwind. But they have a habit, I don't know why, of getting too close and blowing the riders around, and in this case, blowing the barriers around. And it's RAI that the organisers of the race. They just got to take total responsibility. We don't see it at the Tour de France. We never see it at the Tour de France. We still get fantastic pictures without the helicopter being in the peloton. So, it should never happen, Henry, and it's inexcusable, really. And for the guys that crashed, I think a couple of guys had to leave the race because of it. It's a costly mistake for by the television or whoever's covering and whoever was in that to eliminate guys from the race that way is really sad.
Yeah, it just seems inexplicable that it can happen, really, and even the mechanics of how it could push the barriers out to them seems bizarre. So it's just one of those things. I mean, we've already seen a couple of water bottles that the bidons causing crashes for a couple of guys, and Thomas included. Yeah,
and that's the speed humps on the road that are pretty sharp, and you hit them and the bidons bounce out of the riders accept that can happen. The guys drop bidons, they bounce out of the bikes. But I think the UCI, we've seen a year this year, I think, of rider safety being put in jeopardy far too often. And this is just another example of it. And they need to step up and make it safer for, the actors, the stars of the show are the bike riders. So protect them, look after them, make it safe for them. They've really got to start taking some serious action around barriers, around some of the finishes, things like the helicopter, the motorbikes, not the team cars, but the support cars. When Jesse Sargent got taken out by the Shimano car, that stuff should never, ever happen. And they've got to start looking after the riders a lot more on all levels, but particularly around safety.
Yeah, 100%. Couldn't agree with you more on that. Moving closer to home, obviously the whole country back at level 1 now, and we've seen a bit of sort of local racing start up again. What sort of information have you got on that, and what's been happening?
Oh, it's been great, hasn't it? It's great to see we're at level 1. A really exciting event, I thought, was the Younker Tour for the young kids down in Southland. It's one of the, gosh, I rode it as a schoolboy, so it's been going for a long, long time. It wasn't called the Younker then, but at this time of year, you experience what the Tour of Southland was back when it started. Wind, rain, some sleet. Seeing these young kids, massive fields, brilliant to see from all over the country. So well done Cycling Southland on again, yet absolutely brilliant Younker Tour. And at the senior level, the Dynamo Series has started in Cambridge, so it's great for Auckland, Waikato riders. And down at the other end of the country, the Trust House series is on. So race 1 was cancelled because of really bad weather. Race 2, great race, really good racing, big fields, and Black Spoke Racing down there. They went down for race 1 and 2. Clean sweep, of course, as you would expect, at the podium, first, second, third gate or a Mudgeway. But seeing the stuff that's gone on in the community, they've joined the local midweek club race. They've been out on the Sunday bunchy with the club guys.
It's good to see them making the most of it, because obviously, they would have loved. I think they were sort of lining up a lot of those sort of races in Asia and things like that, weren't they? So this is probably the next best thing they can do.
Yes, I think they had some plans for maybe some American races, maybe some European races. Scott Guyton's got a lot of great connections in Europe from his time racing there, and same with James in the US and the results they've had. It's been a tough start to them, but hopefully they've become tighter as a team. Hopefully their backers are still committed, and they'll get the opportunity next year to do some of the events. And the season's been really short, really condensed, and we're already seeing riders going, that's it for the season. We've just seen Pogacar going, the season's done for the year now, and not surprising at his age. The result he had at the Tour de France, the World Championships, the Liège-Bastogne-Liège being on the podium, saying, I'm done for the season, totally understandable, and I think a great decision by his coaches and team management to say, well done, and go enjoy the off-season, but not too much.
Yeah, I think that's very much deserved from him. Before we go, any last thoughts on the Giro? Any idea of a winner at all?
Oh, no. I right now, it's really easy to go. Vincenzo Nibali's sitting there, the names we know of. Joachim Fuglsang, I think, is very dangerous. He's in good form. He had a great World Championships, preparing for this. He's there or thereabouts. But gosh, so is Wilco Kelderman. But the other, the tour leader from Portugal, fantastic. It's great to see that, and we don't know what they're capable of at this level. So I'm going to sit back. I'm going to watch it on Sky Sport and absolutely revel in what's going to unfold over the next couple of weeks, and just see who emerges in that last week of the Giro, because it's going to be tough. There's going to be some tired riders, and we'll see whether the experience can come through or youth keeps dominating.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. I'm not even going to try and pick who's going to win this one with it's a 3-week race. I mean, we've seen Yates down, but you never know. Guys can crack towards the end of it. And I think Kelderman, Fuglsang, they're all looking good. Steven Kruijswijk even is still looking good enough, but especially with 2 more time trials to come as well, they'll play a big factor.
They will, and some of the guys top of the leaderboard climbers now, how they're going to time trial. It's actually quite a exciting tour with those 3 time trials. Not too long, but long enough to test everybody. But if you're going okay, you're still in with a chance, and some really big mountain passes to climb. And again, a slightly different time of year than we're used to. So I think we're going to see a really exciting finish to the Giro, and somewhere, I guess, before we get to catch up next, we've probably got a classic thrown in again. So I haven't had a look that far ahead on the program.
Yeah. I think early next week we've got another one in Flanders. I was having a look at the start list. I didn't quite see any Kiwis yet, but I think Sam Bennett was racing for the Koenig, so that means Archbold might get a look. I imagine Dion Smith's probably in with a good shout for Mitchelton.
Jack Bauer will definitely be in, I
Yep.
would say, Flanders and Roubaix. And the way if he's come out of the Tour de France well and the way he was going, he'll be in the mix. You need a lot of things to go your way. They're tricky, tight, technical races. But Jack Bauer for the Kiwis, and then like I say, Dion Smith. Unfortunately, Sam Bewley's probably still recovering with the broken wrist, but. Keep an eye out. Jack Bauer would be. I think he'll be Mitchelton-Scott's go-to in one of those big classics.
Yeah, and as well, I think Tom Scully might get another run as well. I think supporting Sepp Van Mark. I mean, Scully's always pretty reliable in these races,
Yes.
isn't he?
Yeah, very good. A lot of horsepower, that big track background. So speed and strength. We've seen Hayden Ralston deliver that way many a times with Cancellara and Paris-Roubaix, Flanders, Jesse Sargent doing the same. So very similar background. But those guys were also good enough, given the opportunity, given the support, to win the bike race. There was a couple of times I thought Hayden Ralston was going to win Roubaix and be right in the sharp end, but you end up in that last 50k sacrificing yourself totally for your team leader. Hopefully Gak may be the team leader, or things go well for Tom or Dion and they're in the right break and the right move and they get the opportunity to shine, because wow, we saw it. The Australians have had a couple of big classic wins. We're overdue. We're overdue for a big stage win or a classic.
Definitely. We've been saying it all year in the Tour de France as well. So hopefully that all comes to fruition. Of course, all of it live on Sky Sport as well. So keep an eye on that. Normally it's Sky Sport 8 and sort of late at night, but there's good highlights packages throughout the day and on the app as well. Thanks again for your time, Del, and we'll see if we can schedule in another one next week and see if the Giro picture's a bit clearer by then.
Well, let's hope so. Thanks very much, Henry.
Awesome. Thanks, mate.